The crystal beings of Kepler 442b had never known fear like this. Their beautiful world of singing towers and light-filled caverns was burning. The Vortex ships hung in their sky like black metal vultures, tearing apart everything the Zealothi had built over thousands of years. Elder Shamara pressed her translucent hands against the communication crystal in the deepest chamber of their capital city. Her body glowed with desperate light as she sent out the signal that would reach across the galaxy. The message was simple, and pure, raw terror mixed with hope that someone, somewhere, might hear their cry. The Vorthak had come 3 days ago without warning. Their massive ships had simply appeared and started taking everything. They stripped the crystal forests that the Zealothi needed to live. They destroyed the singing pools where young Zealothi were born. They killed anyone who tried to stop them. Shamara's people were not warriors. They had never needed to be. Their world was peaceful. Their technology focused on art and communication rather than weapons. They could speak across vast distances, using their crystal networks, but they had no guns, no bombs, no way to fight back against the metal monsters that fell from space. The communication crystal grew hot under her touch as she poured all of her remaining strength into the signal. It had to reach someone. It had to. Far away, near the edge of human space, Captain Jake Morrison sat in the command chair of the U.S. Valiant. His ship was on routine patrol duty, checking the outer systems for pirates or equipment failures. It was boring work, but someone had to do it. Jake was a tall man with rough hands and tired eyes. He had been in space for 15 years, working his way up from a simple mechanic to commanding his own ship. The Valiant was not the newest or fastest ship in the Earth Defense Force, but she was solid and reliable. Just like her crew, the signal hit their communication system like a wave of pure emotion. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Brooks, who was monitoring the long-range sensors, gasped and nearly fell out of her chair. The sound that came through the speakers was unlike anything any human had ever heard. It was not words or music. It was fear made into sound. It was the cry of a mother watching her children die. It was the last breath of a dying civilization calling out to anyone who might listen. Lisa's hands shook as she tried to trace the signal's origin. She was a xenobiologist trained to study alien life, but this was different. This was not data or samples in a lab. This was real suffering happening right now, somewhere in the galaxy. "Captain," she said, her voice barely steady, "you need to hear this." Jake moved to her station and listened to the recording. The crew gathered around, drawn by something they could not explain. Chief Engineer Rick Martinez, a short man with grease under his fingernails, wiped his eyes and did not seem ashamed of it. "What are they saying?" Jake asked. Lisa worked at her console, running the signal through every translation program the ship had. I think they are not saying anything with words. This is pure emotion, fear, pain, and..." She paused, checking her readings again. "Hope. They still have hope that someone will help them." "Where is it coming from?" "Kepler 442b. It is about 2 weeks away at maximum speed." "But Captain, our orders are to patrol this sector. We cannot just leave our assigned area." Jake stared at the star charts on the main screen. 2 weeks away, an alien species was dying and calling for help. The smart thing would be to report it to headquarters and let someone else handle it. The safe thing would be to follow orders and stay where they were supposed to be, but Jake Morrison had not joined the Earth Defense Force to do the smart thing or the safe thing. He had joined to protect people who could not protect themselves. "Rick, how fast can you get us there?" The engineer looked up from his tablet. "If I push the engines past their normal limits, maybe 12 days. But Captain, if we break down in deep space, then we fix it and keep going." Jake turned to his communications officer. "Send a message to headquarters. Tell them we are responding to a distress signal and requesting backup. Sir, they will order us to return to patrol. Then make sure the message takes a while to send. Equipment problems, solar interference, whatever you need to do." The bridge was quiet for a moment. Then Lisa smiled and Rick nodded, and the communications officer started typing very slowly on Kepler 442b. Elder Shamara felt the crystal grow dim under her hands. She had sent everything she had into space, hoping against hope that someone would hear. Now she could only wait and watch as her world died around her. Then something impossible happened. The crystal began to glow again, but this time with a different light. An answer was coming back. The message was short and came in a language the translation matrix had never encountered before. But somehow the meaning was clear. The words carried an undertone of controlled anger that made the crystal ring like a bell. "Help is coming, hold on," Chimera called out to the other survivors hiding in the deep chambers. "Someone heard us," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "Someone is coming." She did not know that the someone was a species the galaxy feared. She did not know that humans came from a world so dangerous that most aliens considered it uninhabitable. She only knew that somewhere in the dark someone had heard their cry and decided to answer. The U's Valiant turned toward KEPLER 442b and began its race against time. In the engine room, Rick pushed the systems harder than they were designed to go. On the bridge, Lisa worked to learn everything she could about the species that had called for help. And in his cabin, Jake Morrison studied star charts and wondered what they would find when they arrived. Behind them, other ships began to move. The message Jake had sent to headquarters might have been delayed, but it had been received. And when humans heard that someone was crying for help, they did not send just one ship. They sent everything they had. Admiral Susan Carter stood in the command center of the Earth Defense Force headquarters, watching the holographic display show ship movements across human space. The delayed message from Captain Morrison had finally arrived, and what she saw made her jaw clench with anger. An alien species was being wiped out while crying for help. That was not something humans could ignore. Susan was a short woman with silver hair and scars on her hands from her early days as a ship engineer. She had fought in the War of Terran Independence and knew what it meant to face impossible odds. She also knew that sometimes you had to do the right thing even when the order said otherwise. "How many ships can we move without leaving Earth defenseless?" she asked her aide, Commander Paul Rogers. "Admiral, our orders from the Council are clear. We cannot commit major fleet assets to unknown alien conflicts." Susan turned to face him, and Paul took a step back. When Admiral Carter got angry, smart people got out of her way. "Commander, somewhere in this galaxy, children are dying while their parents beg for help. If we do nothing, we are no better than the monsters killing them." She pointed at the display. "I want every available ship ready to move in 6 hours. Admiral, the Council will have your command for this. Then they can court-martial me after we save some lives." "Send the orders." Across human space, ships began to move. The UES Falcon under Captain Elena Rodriguez was the first to respond. Elena was known for her quick thinking and faster ships. Her crew was small but experienced, perfect for scouting ahead of the main fleet. In the Falcon's briefing room, Elena looked at her senior staff. Marine Colonel Danny Wright sat at the far end of the table, his massive frame making the chair look like a toy. Danny had fought on 3 different worlds and never lost a battle. Next to him sat Dr. Alex Stone, a thin man with kind eyes who specialized in making contact with new alien species. "What do we know about these Zelethi?" Elena asked. Alex pulled up the limited data they had gathered from Morrison's transmissions. "They appear to be a crystal-based life form. Peaceful, advanced in communication technology, but with no military capability. They have never been in a war before." "And the ones attacking them? The Vorthic Empire?" "They have conquered 47 star systems in the last century. They strip planets of resources and eliminate any species that resists." Danny leaned forward. "How do they fight?" "Long-range energy weapons, heavy shields, standard galactic combat doctrine." "They rely on superior technology and numbers to overwhelm their enemies." Elena smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. "Then they have never fought humans before." "Captain," Alex said carefully, "you should know that most alien species consider us to be Deathworlders. They think Earth is too dangerous to live on. Why? Our gravity is 3 times normal galactic standard. Our weather patterns are considered catastrophically violent. Our atmosphere has too much oxygen and is corrosive to many species. Most aliens think we are crazy for living here." Danny laughed. "Wait until they see how we fight." Elena nodded. Alex, I want you to prepare first contact protocols. We are going to meet the Zealothi, and I want them to trust us. Danny, get your Marines ready. We might have to fight our way in. With pleasure, Captain. The Falcon jumped to hyperspace, racing toward the Kepler system. Behind them, the largest human fleet ever assembled was getting ready to follow. On Kepler 442b, Elder Shamara and the surviving Zealothi huddled in the deep caves beneath their dying city. The Vorthak had landed ground forces and were systematically hunting down any remaining crystal beings. Young Kristen, barely formed and glowing with fear, pressed close to Shamara. Elder, are the helpers really coming? Shamara touched the communication crystal one more time. The signal was still there, growing stronger. Yes, little one, someone heard us. Above them, the Vorthak continued their work. Commander Vex of the Vorthak Third Fleet walked through the ruins of the Crystal City, satisfied with their progress. In 2 more days, the planet would be stripped clean and ready for mining operations. His communication device buzzed. Commander, we have detected unknown ships approaching the system. Vex was not concerned. Sometimes other species tried to interfere with Vorthak operations. They were always dealt with quickly. How many ships? Just one, sir. Small, fast-moving. Send. A patrol to intercept. Standard warning, then destruction if they do not leave. Yes, Commander. The used Falcon dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system. Elena looked at the tactical display and felt sick. The beautiful world she could see was scarred with black smoke and fires. Ships hung in orbit like metal insects, taking everything they could carry. Captain, her tactical officer called out, 3 ships moving to intercept. They are transmitting a warning to leave the system. What exactly are they saying? Standard Galactic Protocol. Identify yourself, state your business, or be destroyed. Elena looked at Danny, who was grinning like a Volf. Danny, are your Marines ready? Always, Captain. Good. Elena opened a channel to the approaching Vorthak ships. This is Captain Elena Rodriguez of the Earth Defense Force. You will stop your attack on the Zealothi immediately and withdraw from this system. The Vorthak response came quickly. Unknown species, this system is under Vorthak control. Leave now or face destruction. Elena closed the channel and turned to her weapons officer. Target their engines. Let's show them how humans say hello. The Falcon was built for speed, not heavy combat, but humans had learned to fight with whatever they had. Instead of the long-range energy weapons the Vorthak expected, the Falcon launched nuclear-tipped missiles at close range while using its superior speed to avoid return fire. The first Vorthak ship exploded before its crew understood what was happening. The second managed to get its shields up, but human kinetic weapons punched through energy barriers like they were paper. The third ship tried to run and found that nothing in the galaxy was faster than a human ship with angry humans inside it. In 3 minutes, the patrol was destroyed. Elena opened a channel to the planet's surface, hoping the Zealothi could hear her. This is Captain Rodriguez. Help has arrived. Hold on just a little longer. On the planet, Elder Shamara felt the crystals sing with joy. The helpers were not just coming, they were here. And they fought like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Commander Vex stared at his tactical display in disbelief. 3 ships destroyed in minutes by unknown weapons and tactics. These humans, whoever they were, did not fight like civilized species. Send word to the main fleet, he ordered. We need reinforcements. How many ships, Commander? Vex looked at the tactical data again. The human ship was still out there, and more signals were appearing at the edge of the system. All of them. Send all of them. The main human fleet arrived at the Kepler system like thunder rolling across the sky. Admiral Susan Carter stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty, watching the tactical display show the horror that had been done to the Zealothi homeworld. Half the planet was dark. The beautiful crystal cities that had taken thousands of years to grow were broken and burning. Massive Vorthak mining ships hung in orbit, stripping away everything that made the world alive. Admiral, her tactical officer reported, we count 37 Vorthak vessels in orbit. They are heavily armed but positioned for mining operations, not battle. Susan nodded grimly. They did not expect anyone to fight back. Commander Ben Taylor, take a shuttle down to the surface. Find the survivors and let them know we are here to help. Ben was a calm man with steady hands and a gift for making people trust him. If anyone could make contact with traumatized aliens, it was him. Admiral, the Vorthak are sending us a transmission. Put it through. The voice that came through the speakers was cold and mechanical. Human fleet, this is Vorthak Commander Vex. You are interfering with lawful mining operations. Leave the system immediately or face the consequences. Susan's response was short and sharp. Commander Vex, this is Admiral Carter of the Earth. Defense Force, you have 30 minutes to withdraw all forces from this system. Any ship that remains will be destroyed. You dare threaten the Vorthak Empire? We have conquered worlds when your species was still crawling in mud. 29 minutes and 50 seconds. The channel went dead. Around the bridge, the crew worked with quiet efficiency. They had trained for moments like this, when everything depended on doing their jobs perfectly. On the planet's surface, Commander Ben Taylor's shuttle landed near what had once been the Zelethi capital city. The crystal spires that should have been singing with light were cracked and silent. Bodies of crystal beings lay scattered in the streets, their translucent forms shattered like broken glass. Ben and his small team moved carefully through the ruins. They carried no heavy weapons, only medical supplies and communication equipment. The last thing they wanted was to frighten any survivors. Sir, his medic called out, I am getting life signs from below ground. They followed the readings too. What looked like a natural cave entrance. Ben activated his suit's translation program and called out in the standard galactic language. Hello? We are humans. We received your call for help. We are here to help you. For a long moment there was silence. Then a soft glow appeared in the darkness, and Elder Shamara emerged from the depths. She was beautiful in a way that took Ben's breath away, like living starlight shaped into a woman's form, but she was also clearly afraid. She moved slowly, ready to run at the first sign of danger. You are the ones who answered our call? She asked, her voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Yes, I am Commander Ben Taylor. How many of your people are still alive? Shamara's light dimmed with sadness. Perhaps 3,000 hidden in the deep caves. There were millions before the metal ones came. Ben felt anger rise in his chest. But he kept his voice calm. We are going to stop them. But first we need to get you and your people to safety. Safety? There is no safety. The metal ones are too strong, too many. They destroy everything they touch. Ma'am, with respect, you have never seen humans fight. We come from a world that tried to kill us every day for millions of years. We learned to be very good at surviving and even better at protecting our friends. Shamara studied Ben's face. Through her crystal biology, she could sense the emotions of other beings. What she felt from this human was something she had never experienced before. Absolute certainty that he would protect her people, even if it cost him his life. Your people ... you would fight the metal ones for us? Even though you do not know us? That is what humans do. When someone calls for help, we answer. In orbit, the 30-minute deadline passed with the Vorthak ships still in position. Admiral. Carter gave the order that changed everything. All ships, weapons free. Protect the planet. The battle began like no fight the galaxy had ever seen. The Vorthak expected long-range energy combat with formal battle lines. Instead, human ships charged straight at them, firing kinetic weapons and nuclear missiles while using their superior speed to avoid return fire. Captain Jake Morrison, who had arrived with the main fleet, led a group of converted cargo ships in a flanking attack. His ship, the Valiant, was not built for war, but humans had turned it into one anyway. Missile pods welded to the hull, extra armor plating, and a crew willing to ram enemy ships if necessary. The Vorthak found themselves fighting an enemy that did not follow any civilized rules of war. Human ships worked in packs, covering each other while striking at weak points. When Vorthak ships tried to target human vessels, they found that humans were willing to sacrifice one ship to save two others. But the real shock came when the Vorthak realized what humans were actually doing. They were not just fighting to win. They were fighting to save the Zealothi. Every human ship that broke through the Vorthak lines immediately moved to protect the planet. They positioned themselves between the Vorthak mining ships and the surface, taking hits meant for the world below. "Admiral," her communications officer called out, "the Vorthak commander is requesting to speak with you. Put him through." "Commander." Vex's voice was no longer confident. "Admiral Carter, your species fights with madness. You will lose more ships than you save. Commander, you clearly do not understand humans. We do not calculate the cost when innocent people are dying. We just fight until we win or there is nothing left of us to fight with. This is not your world. These are not your people." Susan looked at the tactical display, watching her ships take damage to protect beings they had never met. "Commander, you are wrong. The moment the Zealothi called for help, they became our people, and humans protect their people." The communication ended and the battle continued, but something had changed. The Vorthak were no longer fighting to complete their mission. They were fighting to survive against an enemy that valued the lives of strangers more than their own safety on the planet. Elder Shamara felt the crystal communication network come alive with something new, hope. For the first time since the attack began, her people dared to believe they might live to see another day. High above, humans she had never met were dying to protect her world. It was something beyond her understanding, but she knew it was the most beautiful thing she had ever witnessed. The space around Kepler 442b had become a graveyard of metal and fire. Human and Vorthak ships twisted and burned as the largest battle in galactic history raged on. But the humans were not losing. They were winning in ways that made no sense. To anyone watching, Captain Jake Morrison pushed his converted cargo ship, the Valiant, through a gap in the Vorthak formation. His ship was not meant for this kind of fighting, but his crew had turned it into something deadly. Behind him, 6 more cargo ships followed, all loaded with missiles and crewed by humans who had volunteered to fight. "Jake, this is insane," his chief engineer Rick Martinez called from the engine room. "We are flying straight into their heaviest ships." "I know, Rick, but look at your sensors. See those mining ships near the planet? They are getting ready to fire on the surface. We cannot let that happen." Rick looked at his display and saw what Jake meant. 3 massive Vorthak ships were moving into position to bombard the planet where the Zealothi survivors were hiding. If those ships fired, thousands of crystal beings would die. "Understood, Captain. Engines at maximum power." The Valiant and her sister ships charged toward the Vorthak formation like wolves attacking a bear. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but they had something the Vorthak did not understand: the absolute certainty that some things were worth dying for on the planet's surface. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Brooks worked frantically in the crystal caves with the Zealothi survivors. She had discovered something amazing about their biology. The Zealothi could share memories and emotions through their crystal network, but they could also amplify other signals. "Elder Shamara," Lisa said, her hands flying over her portable computer, "your people can boost our communications. We can use your crystal network to disrupt the Vorthak command signals." Shamara's crystalline form pulsed with confusion. "We do not understand. How can our songs of peace become weapons of war? Not weapons, tools of protection. The Vorthak ships work together like a hive mind. If we can break their coordination, they become much weaker." Dr. Alex Stone, who had been working to understand Zealothi communication, looked up from his equipment. "Lisa is right. If we can get the Zealothi to broadcast on the same frequency the Vorthak use for commands, it will be like shouting in their ears during a battle." Young Kristen, the small Zealothi who had stayed close to Shamara, stepped forward. "Elder, the metal ones hurt our world. If our songs can stop them, should we not sing?" Shamara looked around at her people. 3,000 survivors out of millions, all of them looking to her for hope. "We will sing," she decided, "but not songs of war. We will sing of protection, of life, of the humans who came to save us." In space, Admiral Susan Carter watched her tactical display with growing concern. The human fleet was holding its own, but barely. The Vorthak had called in reinforcements, and more ships were arriving every hour. "Admiral," her communications officer reported, "Captain Morrison's group is engaging the mining ships near the planet. They are taking heavy fire." Susan could see the Valiant on her screen, surrounded by enemy vessels but still fighting. Jake's ship was damaged and bleeding atmosphere, but it continued to fire at the Vorthak ships, threatening the planet. Then something changed. The Vorthak formation suddenly became confused. Ships that had been working together perfectly began to spread out and fire in random directions. Their coordinated attacks fell apart. "What is happening?" Susan demanded. Her science officer checked his instruments. "Admiral, there is some kind of interference coming from the planet. It appears to be disrupting Vorthak communications." On the planet, the crystal caves filled with beautiful, haunting music as 3,000 Zealothi sang together for the first time since the attack began. But this was not the same species that had been helpless 3 days ago. They were singing with purpose, with hope, with the strength they had learned from watching humans fight for them. The song reached into space and wrapped around the Vorthak ships like invisible chains, breaking the connections that held their fleet together. Colonel Danny Wright chose that moment to do something that would be talked about in military schools for centuries. With the Vorthak fleet in chaos, he led a boarding party directly at their command ship. "Danny, you cannot board that ship," Captain Elena Rodriguez said over the radio. "It has 10 times Earth gravity and an atmosphere that will burn your lungs." "Captain, I have been in worse places. Besides, someone needs to knock on their door and explain why we are angry." Danny's shuttle crashed through the Vorthak command ship's hangar like a meteor. The Marines inside wore heavy armor that could handle the crushing gravity, and they carried weapons designed to work in any atmosphere. The Vorthak crew had never fought humans up close. They were used to enemies who died quickly in their ships. Hostile environment. Instead, they found armored figures who moved through their corridors like unstoppable machines, fighting through wounds that should have killed them. Dottie reached the bridge and found Commander Vex standing over a control panel that would destroy the planet if activated. "Human," Vex said, his mechanical voice filled with hate. "If we cannot have this world, no one will." "Commander," Danny replied, raising his weapon, "you made one mistake. You hurt our friends." The fight that followed was brief and decisive. When it ended, the Vorthak command ship was under human control, and their fleet was in full retreat. Back on the planet, Elder Shamara felt the song of her people change. Where there had been fear, now there was celebration. Where there had been despair, now there was joy. Commander Ben Taylor found her in the crystal chamber where it had all started. "Elder, the Vorthak are leaving. Your world is safe." Shamara's form glowed brighter than it had in days. "Commander Taylor, your people have given us something we thought was lost forever." "What is that? A future and friends to share it with?" Above them, the human fleet regrouped around the damaged planet. Ships that had been enemies an hour ago were now working together to tend the wounded and repair the damage. Admiral Carter opened a channel to all human ships. "Well done, everyone. But remember, this is not about victory. This is about making sure the Zealothi never have to face something like this alone again." Captain Morrison, his ship barely holding together, managed a tired smile. "Admiral, I think. We just made some new friends." In the crystal caves below, 3,000 Zealothi sang a new song. It was a song of gratitude, of friendship, and of the strange aliens who had crossed the galaxy to answer a cry for help. The Vorthak fleet disappeared into hyperspace, carrying word of their defeat to the rest of their empire. For the first time in centuries, they had met an enemy they could not defeat, but more importantly, the galaxy had learned something new about the species called humans. When someone called for help, they did not just answer. They came with everything they had, and they did not stop fighting until their friends were safe. 6 months after the battle, Kepler 442b was alive again. The Crystal Cities still bore scars from the Vorthak attack, but new growth sparkled in the sunlight. Human engineers worked alongside Zealothi builders, learning to shape crystal and metal, together in ways neither species had imagined alone. Admiral Susan Carter stood in the newly built command center that overlooked the main Zealothi city. Through the transparent walls, she could see human ships patrolling the system while Zealothi communication crystals hummed with peaceful songs. It was not the same world that had cried for help 6 months ago. It was something better. "Admiral," Commander Ben Taylor said as he entered the room, "the morning reports are ready." Ben had stayed on the planet to help coordinate the rebuilding effort. He had learned to speak some of the Zealothi harmonic language, and they had taught him to feel emotions through crystal touch. It was strange but wonderful. "How are our new friends doing?" Susan asked. "Better than we hoped." "The population is growing again. Young Zealothi are being born in the new crystal pools we helped them build. And Elder Shamara wants to speak with you about something important." Susan nodded. Over the past months, she had grown to respect the Zealothi leader. Shamara was gentle but incredibly strong, with a wisdom that came from living through the worst possible disaster and choosing to hope anyway. They found Shamara in the central crystal chamber, the same place where she had sent the original cry for help, but now the chamber glowed with warm light instead of desperate fear. "Admiral Carter," Shamara said, her voice like singing bells, "we have something to show you." She led them to a new crystal formation that had not been there the day before. It was beautiful, shaped like intertwined spirals reaching toward the ceiling. "This is a memory crystal," Shamara explained. "It contains the story of what happened. Here, every Zealothi child who is born will experience these memories. They will know how humans came when we called for help." Susan felt tears in her eyes. "Elder, that is the most beautiful thing anyone has ever done for us." "Admiral, you do not understand. This is not just for us. We want to share these memories with other species. We want the galaxy to know what humans really are." Ben stepped closer to the crystal. Through his training, he could sense the emotions stored within it. Fear and pain from the attack, but also hope, courage, and the unshakable certainty that humans would never abandon their friends. "Elder," Ben said softly, "are you sure about this? Some species might see these memories as threatening." Shamara's light pulsed with something that might have been laughter. "Commander Taylor, let them be threatened. Let them know that when they hurt innocent people, humans will come. Let them know that the age of unopposed conquest is over." In space above them, Captain Jake Morrison walked through the corridors of his new ship. The Valiant had been too damaged to repair, but the Earth Defense Force had given him something better. The used Guardian was built specifically for protecting other worlds. With the best weapons and shields humanity could create, Jake stopped at the observation deck and looked out at the system they now called home. Human and Zealothi ships worked together on patrol routes, their different technologies making both fleets stronger. His communication device buzzed. It was a priority message from Earth. "Captain Morrison," Admiral Carter's voice came through clearly, "we have received 17 new distress signals in the past month. Species across the galaxy are calling for help against various threats." Jake was not surprised. Word had spread about what happened at Kepler 442b. Oppressed peoples everywhere had learned that there was someone who would answer when they called. "What are your orders, Admiral?" "Jake, I am promoting you to Admiral of the Protection Fleet. Your job is to answer those calls. Take whatever ships and crew you need." Jake looked out at the mixed human and Zealothi vessels and smiled. "Admiral, I know exactly who I want to take with me." On Earth, politicians argued about the cost of protecting alien species. Some said humanity should focus on its own problems. Others worried about making enemies of powerful empires, but in the deep space communication centers, operators listened to signals from across the galaxy. Distress calls still came in, but now they were answered quickly, and sometimes the calls were different. "Human fleet, this is the Mentari Republic. The Zealothi have shared their memory crystals with us. We want to join your alliance." "Earth Defense Force, this is the Corvan Assembly. We have resources you need and worlds that could use protection. Let us work together. Humans, this is the Theta colony. Pirates have been attacking our trade routes. We have heard you help people who ask. We are asking. Dr. Alex Stone, now the chief diplomat for human-alien relations, worked around the clock to handle the flood of new contacts. His office was filled with translation equipment, cultural databases, and gifts from dozens of species. Alex, his assistant said, bringing him another stack of messages. The Zealothi memory crystals have reached the Galactic Council. They want to meet with Admiral Carter. Alex leaned back in his chair. The Galactic Council was the closest thing to a government the galaxy had, but it mostly talked while people suffered. Now they wanted to talk to humans. Schedule the meeting, he said, but make sure they understand our terms. We do not negotiate about protecting innocent people. 3 weeks later, Admiral Carter stood before the Galactic Council on their home station. Representatives from hundreds of species filled the great chamber, all of them staring at the human who had changed everything. Admiral Carter, the council speaker said, humanity has disrupted the balance of power in this galaxy. Your actions have consequences. Susan looked around the chamber at beings who had watched the Zealothi die and done nothing. Council speaker, the only consequence I care about is that innocent people are still alive. You cannot protect everyone. You do not have enough ships, enough people. Maybe not, Susan admitted, but we will try. And every species we save becomes our friend. Every world we protect teaches others what is possible. Eventually there will be so many of us that bullies like the Vorthek will have nowhere to hide. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then a small voice spoke from the back. The Theta Republic requests permission to join the Human Protection Alliance. The Mentari systems also wish to join, said another voice. The Free Worlds Coalition stands with humanity. One by one, representatives stood and declared their support. Not all of them, but enough. Enough to make a difference. Months later, Captain Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of her ship as it approached another system in distress. Behind her, a fleet of 30 vessels flew in formation. Human ships, Zealothi crystal ships, Mentari carriers, and others. Captain, her communications officer reported, we are receiving a distress signal from the planet below. Elena smiled. It was the same smile she had worn when facing the Vorthek, but now it carried something more. Hope. Send the standard response. She ordered dot across space. The message went out to another species calling desperately for help. This is the protection fleet. We received your signal. Help is coming. Hold on. And in the deep places where evil things planned evil deeds, creatures that had never known fear began to understand what it meant to be afraid, because the humans had kept their promise. When someone cried for help, they came. And now they brought friends.